Hello, everyone, and welcome to Aquent's Summer of Learning Career Snippet. Today, we're going to be focusing on the story of a self-taught web designer. My name's Christina Gartelis, and I work with the Learning Services Department at Aquent. And I have joining us Wren Lanier. Wren is a senior interactive designer at a Fortune 500 financial services firm located in Richmond, Virginia. And she's been kind enough to join us today to share her story and also share some tips and helpful information if you're interested in teaching yourself web design. So Wren, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks.
Yes. So to get us started, why don't you tell us a little bit about what got you interested in being a web designer?
There was one summer when I was in college and classes were over and I hadn't started my summer job yet. And I was living in this tiny, horrible apartment with no air conditioning. And I was really bored and sort of going out of my mind and realized that I really needed a hobby. And, a friend of mine had started a website on geocities.com. And I just sort of thought, that sounds cool. I can do that. And so I went to geocities.com and staked a claim and started my site.
And the rest is history, huh?
Yes.
Love that. I can imagine all of us have been bored at some point in time on a summer break from college, and it sounds like you put
Yes.
your time to a very good use. So the interesting thing is that I think a lot of our viewers might have a misconception about web design, which is there is one career path, and that is that I need to go study web design at college and then get a job within web design. What's interesting is that you didn't study web design. I think you studied English and philosophy. So
Right.
talk to us a little bit about how you taught yourself web design. I know it started that summer with GeoCities, but where did you go from there?
I've started finding HTML tutorials online and, quickly moved from HTML into CSS because it gave me so much more control over colors and fonts and everything I really wanted to do to customize my site. So I was just constantly looking around for new sites and new resources. I think I started with one that was called HTML Goodies and spent a lot of time there. But basically, any resource I could get my hands on, I was there.
Okay, very cool. And when you were starting out, how much time do you think you spent per week getting your hands dirty and really trying to learn everything you could about web design?
I think I was probably spending at least 15 or 20 hours a week, maybe more, just, as much as I could.
Yeah, clearly a big time commitment that you were putting forth. Okay, very cool. So once you taught yourself web design, clearly you had the skills but not the experience. And I think some viewers might be able to relate to that, whether they've been teaching themselves web design or maybe they just graduated from school and now they're like, now what? What did you do to get experience when you didn't have any experience?
I was just constantly looking for opportunities to
Okay.
put my skills to use. So even at my student job, working with different departments on campus, or anytime somebody needed an email designed or needed a website designed, I was always thinking, oh, I could do that, and volunteering to help. And that gave me so many opportunities to learn how to build different sites and really overcoming the challenges of like real world design with different servers or different technologies that I would encounter.
Very cool. And is that basically how you built your portfolio then, was from all of your volunteer work?
That's definitely how I started building my
Okay.
portfolio. Yes.
Very cool. Great. So I'm sure there are some viewers who feel a little bit overwhelmed at this idea of learning how to design websites. I know that I am a creative but not a web designer, and it feels a little bit overwhelming to me. So walk me through a roadmap or a path that you might suggest for people who are interested in getting started in becoming a web designer.
I think it starts with HTML and CSS and finding a resource that you feel comfortable learning with.
Okay.
So, whether that's a book or whether that's online videos or whether it's just a website with written tutorials that you walk yourself through, is just to find a resource that makes you feel good and feel comfortable with it. Whether you're a video person or a book person, don't feel like you have to be married to one particular medium. Find the one that works best for you.
Different people, different learning styles. That makes sense. And I would say to everyone as well, hopefully you're going through the Summer of Learning curriculum for people who are interested in web design but may not be at that intermediate level quite yet, because I think it's a valuable resource that can really help you get started too. Terrific. Right now, I know that you work as a contractor. Talk to us a little bit about why you've chosen the contractor lifestyle as opposed to someone who works a 9 to 5 position in more of a traditional full-time role.
I really like the flexibility that I have as a contractor, and the way my projects are always changing. I get to work on a lot of different things, and I think that one of the great things about being a web designer is variety, and always having a variety of projects to work on and technologies to work with. And I think that being a contractor helps me with that, helps me really keep my hands on the technology, and not just be in management meetings all the time, or some of the other things that come along with being a full-time employee.
I hear you, focusing more time on what you want to be doing rather than maybe some of the administrative pieces of the role.
Definitely.
Okay. In this industry, it seems like it's very important to keep up with the latest technology, innovation, and trends. I'd be curious, given that, what you might recommend for newbies to be reading, who they should be following, what they might want to be checking out regularly in terms of great websites and resources.
I think the first stop for everyone in web design should be a list apart.
Okay.
I think that Jeffrey Zeldman and the other partners behind that site are really leaders in this field of defining what the new technologies are that we all want to work with. And I think that Smashing Magazine and NetToots and other similar sites also provide a lot of great resources about sites that people are putting up, and directions and trends in the industry. I think that Twitter is a really valuable place to keep up with literally what designers are working on day to day. So in addition to following Zeldman, I enjoy following Ethan Marcotte, Elliot J. Stocks, Trent Walton, Samantha Warren, Megan Fisher. That Dribble is another great place to go to discover designers whose work you admire, to just go through, and anybody who really inspires you, you can then go and find their blog or find their Twitter account or whatever, and just discover the people whose interests align with yours.
Those are some fabulous resources. Thanks for listing those. Sounds like there's a lot out there. You just have to get started, dig a little bit, and you'll probably be taken to a lot of places from there.
For sure.
Perfect. Perfect. I always find it interesting, if I look back on my career, to think about advice that I wish I would have gotten when I was starting off. So thinking about your experience and starting off and wanting to, just loving the internet and wanting to be a web designer, what advice do you wish someone would have given you starting out?
When I first started out, which was over 10 years ago, I wish that I had had a better sense of the value of my own skills, because I started web design and HTML as a hobby, and so it didn't really occur to me that it was going to be my career. It was just sort of this nifty little thing I did on the side, and I didn't really think of it as a marketable skill. So I wish I had had a better sense of that, and also just having a sense of really staying on top of the industry and making sure that I was always learning other marketable skills. And so I think the best advice is to make sure that you're staying current, and you're not teaching yourself the popular content management system from 5 or 10 years ago, that you're teaching yourself what's going on today, and that you understand the value of that, and that you're tailoring your skills to what employers are looking for.
I think that's great advice, and I do think that so many of the roles within web design, front-end developers, are in huge demand, and if you're able to gain those skills and really become solid at your craft, I think that you can ask a great going rate when it comes to your contract rate. So
Definitely.
very important to be staying up to date. Great advice. In closing, as you think about our viewers, we have people coming from a lot of different walks of life. I'm sure that we have some recent graduates who are watching and trying to land that first job. We have some people who might be in another career and they're looking to change careers and become web designers. As you think about the people who will be watching this, what advice might you give aspiring web designers in closing?
I think the best way to really get started is to think about the websites that you love or, the web apps, and to think about your own hobbies and passions and interests that you already enjoy, and find a way to create something for the web that revolves around those things, whether it's your knitting hobby or whether it's your passion for model cars or, just your love for your pets, anything like that that you already put energy and passion into will help keep you motivated to overcome the learning challenges as you teach yourself web design. And as you go and find similar sites to what you want to build, maybe, you tell yourself, oh, I want to put a video on my website. How do I do that? And that's a way to challenge yourself, but also keep yourself interested in what you're doing.
Great point. Great point. It has me thinking about websites that I would like to create because I think that if you're someone who enjoys design and in general technology, even if you're not a web designer, it's a fun thing to think about having your own website and making something out of nothing. So,
Definitely.
very, very interesting. Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Wren. I appreciate your time and know it's very valuable and think that the advice and the tips you've offered will be helpful for everyone who's watching. And
Thank you.
everyone who has been watching, we're so glad that you joined us today for our video and really hope that more than anything, this has encouraged and inspired you to realize that if you have passion and self-motivation, you can go very far and really build your own career as a web designer. So
Mhm.
without any further ado, thanks again for your time, and I look forward to seeing nothing but great things from you, Wren.
Thank you.
Take care.